What is it, Mel? What's the matter?
Joe, I've got some bad news for you. It's about your wife. Somebody had wired a bomb to the ignition. I just got this on the police teletype. You want to read it, Joe?
Should I?
Evelyn's dead.
It was my car. Evelyn was using it today. Where is she?
Medical examiners. Apparently, there was no point taking her to the hospital.
I'll go there in a few minutes.
We'll go with you. We'll stay with you until you're ready.
No, I'm all right. I'll call you if I need you. Okay. Get me Walter Whitaker. No, I don't know whether he's in his construction company office or his nightclub office or his dry cleaning company office. Just get him.
Who is it? Wouldn't say, Mr. Whitaker. All he said was the victim.
Ajax in the fourth, same amount, and blow. You too. Hello?
You didn't get me, Whitaker.
Who is this?
Flexner, the victim. You killed my wife. I've been trying to get you legally. For how many years, Whitaker? Well, I'm going to get you now. No matter what it takes.
Judd. For the defense.
Judd for the Defense is brought to you by...
Mr. Judd? There's a Ruth Massey of the district attorney's office in with Mr. Caldwell. She's a friend of his, and she'd like to see you, too.
All right.
And Mr. Sheldon Shane would like to see you. He's an attorney at law.
Shane, Odom, and Howe. Mouthpieces for Walter Whitaker. I'll see Shane first. It won't take long.
Mr. Shane, Mr. Judd will see you now.
Oh, thank you. Look, Senator, I think you better wait out here.
I think you're going to need me in there.
I'm perfectly capable of handling
I said I think you'll need me in there. Let's go.
Mr. Judd. How do you do, sir? Oh, this is Mr. Fenner.
Of your law firm?
Oh, no. Mr. Fenner is an associate of Walter Whitaker's.
What's on your mind?
I'll come straight to the point. My client feels the need of additional legal talent at this time, and therefore authorized to write you a check up to the sum of $50,000 as a retainer for your services.
Is that what you call coming to the point? Why didn't you just say Whitaker was arrested for the murder of Flexner's wife?
He has not been arrested.
Well, then what does he want with me?
Because he's afraid there's a possibility he might be arrested.
Well, if Whitaker's afraid, I imagine he has good reason to be.
Mr. Judd, I give you my assurance as a fellow lawyer Whitaker had nothing to do with this terrible thing. It's just that with you in his corner, he'd feel much more secure.
Well, tell him that I didn't study law for the purpose of making prosperous thugs feel secure. That's all, Mr. Shane.
Okay, Shane. You step outside. I want to talk to this man alone.
Benner, you're not a fellow lawyer. I don't have to go through the motions of courtesy with you.
Yeah, I know. This is like 40, 50,000 that Uncle Sam doesn't know anything about. What I mean is, you wouldn't have to report this. You wouldn't pay 1 nickel income tax.
Ben, come on in. Bring a friend. Mr. Benner, I'm not interested in your money. But my associate is coming in with an assistant district attorney who will be most interested in any evasion of state taxes.
Oh, Clint, this is Ruth Massey.
Miss Massey, nice to see you.
I'm very happy to meet you.
Ruth and I are old friends from law school. Sit down.
Thank you. I know that you're busy. I came to ask you, well, do you think enough of my boss to do something for him?
I have the highest regard for Joe Flexner. I've known him professionally for years. If there's anything I can do for him at a time like this, just tell me what it is.
Will you go and talk to him before he gets himself into trouble?
What sort of trouble?
Well, from the minute that Joe heard about the explosion, he's been saying that Whitaker did it. I mean that he had it done. Now, he's made up his mind to convict Whitaker, whether there is a case against him or not.
Oh, is there a case?
I don't know. Neither does anyone else in the office.
Well, your boss is an old pro. He probably knows what he's doing.
Mr. Judd, let me tell you what he's doing. Right after it happened, he rented another office, a little cubbyhole in a rickety building on the waterfront. By noon, he had a police teletype installed. Since then, he's been sitting with the teletype while the police bring in some men and take them out again and bring in others, and nobody knows what's going on in there.
Well, Ruth, that doesn't mean that there's anything improper.
Ben, for 15 years, Joe Flexner has been as fair and clean a DA as there is anywhere. And now, all of a sudden, he's running a star chamber proceeding. Well, he's my boss, and I can't tell him that. So would you?
Who is it?
Joe? Clinton Judd.
Oh, Clint? What are you doing here?
Oh, I just happened to be in the neighborhood.
Yes, you did. In the middle of the night. Incidentally, how'd you know I was here?
Oh, somebody just happened to tell me.
Who?
What's the difference?
Well, I'll tell you what the difference is. You read all about how law enforcement is bugging the crooks, but the crooks are bugging us, too. Is that how you found out?
Oh, come on, Joe. You don't think I'd have your office about?
Of course not, Clint. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to be alive today. That bomb was meant for me, you know.
So I understand.
Not that I'm upset for myself. You get so many threats in this job, you learn to live in the shadow. But you don't expect it to happen to your wife. He killed her, Clint. He killed Evelyn.
You know for a fact that it was Whitaker.
Yes, I know.
You have proof.
I'll get proof.
Joe, I understand how you feel. But just because your wife was the victim, don't you have to consult with your staff and make absolutely certain you're prosecuting the right man?
Clint, why are you arguing with me? Are you defending Whitaker?
No, no.
I'll bet you are.
No, I'm not even thinking of Whitaker. I'm thinking of you. I don't want to see you crumple up your spotless record and throw it on the floor like those pieces of paper.
Hello, Shaw. What do you know about this Eddie Lomax? Now, don't ask me what Eddie Lomax. It just came over the teletype. He was shot to death by police officers while attempting to escape the scene of a loft burglary. Well, if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. Then run a make on him and call me right back. Now, what are you suggesting I do?
I'm suggesting you turn this case over to the state. Let the Attorney General prosecute it.
Why?
Because, Joe, in my opinion, you're very naturally and understandably in no emotional condition to be objective about it.
Well, that's a new one. How to avoid prosecution. Kill the DA's wife, and then the eminent Clinton Judd will make out a case that he shouldn't prosecute.
Joe, there are 22 lawyers on the Attorney General's staff. Every one of them is sharp as a knife.
But none of them with the very special quality which I happen to have. A living victim who will nail Whitaker no matter what he has to do. Yes? Just a minute. Excuse me. This is confidential.
All right, Joe.
Yes, sir. You went into a bar where you were a regular customer and you asked for a drink on credit and the bartender refused credit. Is that correct?
Depends on when.
The night before my wife was killed, Dennis.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
You then pointed to a shoebox which you had placed on the bar. And you said, there's dynamite in that box. Is that correct?
I said it, yeah, but I was just kidding around.
You know what this is, Dennis?
You don't see too good.
You see good enough to wire dynamite to the ignition of a car.
No, sir.
It's a key, Dennis. It was found on your person when you were apprehended. Now, this key fits the explosives locker of the Whitaker Construction Company, Dennis.
It's a frame.
Dennis, you're a two-time loser. You fall once more on any charge, you're going to get out too old to see anything. How do you think I would frame a man like you?
Want to sit down, have some breakfast? No breakfast. Mr. Judd wants to sit, but not with you. You too. You forced yourself to defend me? I forced myself to talk to you. How much is this conversation going to cost me? Nothing. It's not for you. It's for someone else. Fine. You want me to prove that I didn't order that blow-up? Mm-hmm. Well, first I have to find out if this conversation is privileged. Is it privileged, Mr. Judd? All right. All right. Even if I am the racket czar that you think I am, I'd still have to operate inside the syndicate. Now, up to now, everything has been calm and peaceful in the territory. All of a sudden, I blow up the DA's car, I kill his wife, and I turn on so much heat that the whole operation has to stop. And you don't think the syndicate would make me sweat for it? Now, would I dare to do it, Mr. Judd? Whitaker, I'm going to ask you another question. You can lie about it, but if you do, I'll just go home and that'll be the end of it. Ask me, what is Flexner's case against you? Lomax. Lomax. What's his connection with you? Lomax gets grabbed, gets sent up, gets sprung. But in between he has to eat, right? I had never heard of Lomax, but how do I know at some time he didn't work for me? In other words, you think he did, and Flexner is using him to frame you? I know Flexner is figuring to frame me. You want me to prove it? Yes. I got a tape of a phone call Flexner made to me. You want to hear it? Mm-hmm. I got the tape in my construction office. You want to take a ride and let me play it for you? All right. Well, let's go.
The syndicate took poor Whitaker for a ride. You don't think he staged the whole thing with his own men? That it was a phony kidnapping to cover up a lawful flight to avoid arrest? Isn't that equally possible?
Of course it's possible. It may even be probable. But, Joe, I have no way of knowing.
You have no way of knowing.
Joe, if you're implying collusion, I don't agree. Mr. Judd didn't even know that we had a warrant out for Whitaker's arrest.
Now, just because we hadn't served it doesn't mean he didn't know about it.
Joe, you didn't even tell me until just 20 minutes ago.
For a very good reason. Clint? Clint, what was that conversation between you and Whitaker?
That's privilege, Joe.
Well, you told me you weren't defending Whitaker. How's the conversation privileged?
Because I felt there was a temporary lawyer-client relationship which prevents me from revealing...
Revealing what? That Whitaker told you were going to be his unimpeachable eyewitness to a phony kidnapping?
All right, Joe, from now on, I'll speak only for the record.
Well, fine, fine. Go ahead.
At approximately 10 a.m., in the company of Walter Whitaker, I entered his parking lot adjacent to his nightclub. I saw a black four-door automobile pull up. I saw two men emerge holding what I took to be guns. I heard one of them order Whitaker into the car.
Did they actually force him?
I saw one of the men strike Mr. Whitaker. I saw him lay hands on him. Subsequently, he did enter the car.
And you claim one of the men took a shot at you?
I saw one of the men point his gun in my direction and fire 2 shots. That is my statement.
Well, that's a pretty careful statement, isn't it? Okay. You have any objections if I release it to the press?
Joe, are you going to try this case in the newspapers?
I'm going to try it any way I can to get Whitaker convicted.
All right, then, add this to your press release. If and when you find Walter Whitaker alive, if and when you issue your arrest warrant, I will defend him.
You're going to do this to me, Clint? Man kills my wife. You're going to try to get him off?
Joe, I'll withdraw from this case the minute you turn it over to the Attorney General. Or let Mel handle it and I'll drop out. But just don't handle it yourself.
There's only one way I'll let go of this case. If it turns out Whitaker was really taken for a ride and killed. Now, would you like to quote the odds?
Are you Fenner?
Yep.
Have you heard from Whitaker?
Uh-uh.
Mr. Fenner, we're taking Whitaker's case.
Since when?
A few minutes ago. Oh, you'll read about it in the evening paper. Now, have you heard from Whitaker?
Not a word.
Well, I just thought I'd come down here and introduce myself to one or two of his friends. If he has any friends.
What for?
Might get myself a free drink.
Okay. Come on.
Official business. Memo to Mr. J. Flexner from Miss Sarmassi. Subject resignation. Ruth, why?
I told you in the office. I don't like the way you're handling the case. It's one thing to accuse a gangster of acting like a gangster, but Clinton Judd of collusion?
Are you so afraid that Mr. Judd's going to get hurt?
Not really. He can look after himself.
Well, then why resign?
Because I care about you.
And that's a reason for leaving me? Now, Ruth, assuming I have no case, assuming I make a complete fool of myself, isn't that the worst that can happen to me?
Why do you argue and argue? You know what can come out in this trial. You know why I'm so frightened for you.
But would it help you if I would admit to you that I'm a little nervous myself?
A little nervous? Joe, tell me, what do you think can come out in court?
That I didn't protect Evelyn. I've had bodyguards myself sometimes after threats, until I got sick of them. But I never had men detailed to guard the house for Evelyn's sake. Why?
Because you didn't expect anyone to try to harm her.
But why didn't I? Mistakes are made. Husbands and wives do switch cars. No, I didn't expect any harm would come to Evelyn because I didn't care. I didn't love her, so I didn't care.
And that's what you're afraid this trial will bring out?
You look surprised. Isn't that what you thought I was afraid of?
Yes. Sure. That's what I thought, yes. I think what you think, Joe.
Where was he?
On a houseboat in the middle of the day.
Whose houseboat?
His brother-in-law's.
Your friend here shows up and said, Mr. Judd wants to defend you. So I say, what's the tab? He says, pretty steep, even before we get to the money part. You've got to surrender to the police. Well, I bought it. But I didn't want to get grabbed going in and have the cops say I was heading out, much less put a bullet through my head. So I said, well, you're my lawyer. Escort me.
On your brother-in-law's houseboat.
Well, it was your fault.
My fault?
Your fault. I asked you to defend me with a check with cash. All you said was no. Wasn't I entitled to try and change your mind?
By staging a phony kidnapping, making me your eyewitness?
Right. I figured this DA would accuse you of collusion. So what were you going to do? Run away scared? Like he caught you with your hand in my pocket?
Whitaker, when I didn't know you, I didn't want you for a client. But now that I know you, you lousy cheat.
Take it easy.
Don't tell me that.
Somebody just came into the outer office.
Oh, are you Mr. Judd?
Yes, ma'am, but I happen to be very busy.
Well, I'll only take a moment of your time. I'm Agnes Gary, Evelyn's mother.
Evelyn?
Evelyn Flexner.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Gary. Won't you sit down?
Thank you. Mr. Judd, I read in the paper this evening that you're going to defend this Walter Whitaker. Now, not that I care for a minute what happens to a gangster, but the point is, did he kill my daughter?
Yes, ma'am, that is the point.
Would you be interested in knowing that Joe Flexner has been seeing another woman?
I don't see how that would have any bearing.
Does this have any bearing?
Mrs. Gary, how many guns do you have in there?
4. Joe would bring them home, one at a time, of course. And Evelyn wanted them out of the house. So Evelyn gave them to me to get rid of them.
Why?
She said Joe wanted to kill her.
Judd for the defense will continue following station identification.
Good morning, Clint. I've been expecting you today.
Oh, why today?
Well, I just had a call from your associate counsel, Mr. Sheldon Shane.
Joe, I am not associated with that firm.
I'll give you the same answer I gave Shane. No, I will not agree to have your client released on bail.
I didn't come to talk about bail. As far as I'm concerned, Whitaker can stay in jail another week until the trial. If there's going to be a trial.
What's this?
A copy of the discovery laws, under which prosecution is required to make its case known to defense before the trial.
Yeah, well, I'm familiar with these provisions.
Yes, of course you are, but you haven't told me anything.
You haven't asked.
I'm asking you now, if you have a case, what is it?
Well, let's see. I'm required to show you the physical evidence.
Plus a list of your witnesses, plus a description of what their testimony will be.
Well, of course, when a murder weapon is an explosive device, not much physical evidence is left, but this would help to convict your client. Now, these are the names of police and other experts who will testify that this explosive device did, in fact, cause the death of one Evelyn Flexner.
Yes?
What do you mean by that?
Go on with your case.
This witness will testify that the explosive element was dynamite. Microscopic examination of fragments of the wrappers will identify the brand of dynamite as Red Circle. This witness will testify that Red Circle is an off-brand and is sold in the city to only 3 construction companies, including the Whitaker Construction Company.
And that's the closest you can tie Whitaker to the crime.
Oh, no. Here's a police report on the man who planted the bomb.
Eddie Lomax?
An habitual criminal who worked for Whitaker at various times.
But not at the time of the bombing.
No, that's what you'd say.
But isn't it convenient that Lomax can't say anything? Lomax was shot by the police.
Lomax was shot 2 days after he wired that bomb to my car, on Walter Whitaker's orders.
How could you prove that?
I have a witness who will so testify.
All right, give me his name and the gist of
no,
his...
sir. You don't get that, not yet. You'll have to wait for the trial.
Joe, if you refuse me information on your key witness, how can I prepare a defense against him?
Well, you can go ahead and make that pitch to the judge. Then I'll pitch the character of the defendant. A big-time gangster. I was afraid that if I were to reveal the identity of my witness, your client would have him rubbed out.
Oh, that's ridiculous. You could protect him.
Can I really? Can I protect anybody against the long arm of the mob? I couldn't even protect myself.
You mean your wife, don't you, Joe?
Well, now, that's the second time you seem to be making some implication around Evelyn. All right, what is it?
I'll go this far. I used to think you were conducting this case improperly for a natural reason. Grief at the loss of your wife. Understandable. But now I wonder if you didn't have a different reason.
Well, don't stop there.
Well, that's where I'm stopping, Joe. I'm not required to reveal my case to you ahead of trial. But maybe I will.
Come in, Joe.
Can I come in anyway?
Well, of course.
Thank you.
Well, how about that for ESP? I must have known that you were coming. I hope that you like martinis.
No, thanks, but I don't.
Oh, I remember now from law school. You never did.
As I remember from law school, you never dated married men.
Well, come on, Ben. I'm going to dinner with my boss. That does not constitute malpractice. Would you like to sit down?
Thank you. You know, of course, that what your boss is trying to do to Whitaker just might constitute malfeasance in office.
I don't think so.
Well, that's not what you thought when you came to our office. Remember when it was nervous time?
Don't remind me. I'm not very proud of myself. I should have trusted Joe from the beginning. I should have understood why he acted like a driven man. Maybe he still is. Perfectly excusable.
But
Once that trial begins, then you will see 15 honest years take over Joe Flexner, and you won't find him guilty of the slightest impropriety.
On the level, Ruth? Are you that sure that he won't present rigged evidence?
Yes, I am very sure.
Are you also saying, on the level, that the real thing driving him is the death of his wife?
No.
What is it, then?
It's Whitaker. It's the power of the man, the arrogance, and all of those loopholes in the law. And then, it's the pure frustration of trying to save the public from mob rule. Joe Flexner sincerely believes that he can nail Whitaker once and for all. So if he gets a little carried away, I mean, can you blame him?
Now, I never quite saw it in that light before.
It's just that you don't have the advantage of seeing Joe Flexner from my point of view.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Ruth, you want to do us all a favor?
Okay, what?
Tonight, after dinner, tell your boss you know just the place to go for a brandy.
Okay. Where?
Our office.
Two brandies coming up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, the price is right. Cheers.
Hello, Joe.
Well, hello, Mom. What? Clint, what is this?
Well, I guess we could call it a sort of pre-trial examination. Unusual in criminal cases, but... Oh, sit down, Mrs. Geary.
Thank you.
Well, I haven't agreed to any such procedure.
Well, I think you better agree to it, Mr. Flexner. This whole thing is for your benefit.
Ruth, I'd like to begin by asking you a few questions. And I'll tell you beforehand, the subject will be your relationship with Joe.
Can you give me any reason why I should answer any such questions at this time?
Because if you don't, you'll have to answer them in court. That's a promise.
All right.
What is the relationship? Ruth, you're not under oath, but we all know what the story is, so let's face it or forget it, okay?
Okay. I'm in love with him.
Is this reciprocated?
Oh, to the best of my knowledge, yes.
How long has this been going on?
2 years.
What plans, if any, did you make together?
We planned to be married if he could get a divorce.
To the best of your knowledge, did Joe ask his wife for a divorce?
Yes, he did.
To the best of your knowledge, would she give it to him?
No, she would not.
He told you this, and you still continued the relationship?
Well, he said that he would be free of her sooner or later.
No matter what he had to do to accomplish that?
Now, just a minute. You can't say a thing like that.
All right, Joe. You would object. The judge would sustain you. I would withdraw the question, though the jury would have heard it. Then I'd invite you to cross-examine. All right, Joe?
Just what do you think you're doing?
I'm doing for you what you wouldn't do for me. I'm disclosing my case. No cross, Joe? All right, I call your mother-in-law. Mrs. Geary, are Miss Massey's statements any surprise to you?
No.
To the best of your knowledge, are they true?
Yes. Absolutely true.
So your daughter told you that Joe asked her for a divorce and she refused?
That's right.
What else, if anything, did she tell you on this subject?
That he'd get excited. And he'd tell her that he had only one life and she wasn't going to ruin it. They didn't have any children and she had no right to be a rope around his neck.
What else, Miss Geary?
But if she wouldn't be civilized about it, he'd get rid of her one way or another. You said that, Joe.
Cross-examine, Joe.
I'd like to know what you're proving, Clint. That I was one of tens of thousands of men who don't get along with their wives? Is that your case?
A little more than that. All right, then.
Mr. Wells, would you come in now, please? Sit down.
Mr. Wills, will you tell us your occupation, please?
I own a service station. I mean, the bank owns part, the oil company owns part, and I own the problem.
Do you remember when the bomb exploded in Mr. Flexner's car, killing his wife?
Yeah, I certainly do.
You remember newspaper stories to the effect that Mrs. Flexner was using her husband's car because, for some reason, her own car was unavailable?
Yeah.
You know where the car was?
Yeah, in my garage.
When was it brought in?
The day before, in the morning.
What was wrong with it?
Oh, nothing, just a lube job and oil change and wheel lining.
And yet you kept the car overnight. Why?
Oh, because Mr. Flexner told me she wouldn't be needing it. She'd be driving his car.
Mr. Flexner told you that?
Yeah, Mr. Flexner. That's what he said when he brought our car in.
Thank you, Mr. Wills. I appreciate this very much.
What is your case? Did I deliberately switch cars with Evelyn, get her killed?
Joe, this is what I will have to present to the jury. I can't defend against evidence you refuse to disclose to me. All I can do is create reasonable doubt, another theory of the crime, and this is it. Joe, I had no choice. I showed you my case for your own sake because I don't want to do this to you. Now, will you back off, Joe? Or at least let the Attorney General prosecute?
No. I will not. I will prosecute myself.
All right. We go to trial. The prosecution has finished presenting its expert witnesses. And it is now 3 p.m. May we ask an adjournment until tomorrow morning?
For what reason, Your Honor?
We intend to present a major witness, Your Honor, whose examination may be lengthy.
That's just what I thought.
Well, Mr. Judd, do you object to the adjournment?
I object to the witness. Your Honor, I suspect this witness is the key to the prosecution's case, and I've been given absolutely no information about him, not even his name.
He's a man of many names.
Why hasn't the district attorney given me one?
Donald Haney. Your Honor. I had good reason for not disclosing
mean
the
anything?
identity of the witness.
No, it doesn't mean a thing.
The danger to this man's life is so great, I've been afraid we couldn't protect him even in jail. I've been keeping him in the Garden Hotel room.
That is no excuse for keeping the defense in the dark.
Defense is not in the dark.
What do you
Your
think
Honor,
he's straight up hero now?
defendant indicates
Hiding that
he knows
witness in
nothing
the time and then
about
giving us nothing but
Your
an
Honor,
alias.
Gentlemen. Under
Joe
the
Flexner
special
deserves everything that Clint is going to do to him.
Okay. Court will make no ruling in advance. Let's wait until such time as the prosecution presents this witness. Court is adjourned till 10 a.m.
What's this all about?
Just as being your client's cell tonight at 8 p.m.
Could you hold on here a minute? I'd like to see who's in those other cells. Let's make a deal, Ben.
What deal?
If your client sees the witness, if he recognizes him and gives you information such that you can build up a strong defense, I know that it sounds like I'm asking a lot, Ben.
Well,
Don't bring up this mare against Joe. You won't need it.
look, I can't make that kind of a deal for Judd.
All right, I'm committed anyway. Tell your witness to keep his eyes open. Donald Haney will spend the night here. Those are orders from the district attorney. I signed those orders myself. Would you bring him through now, please?
Donald Haney. Also known as Dennis Friend, right? Aren't you going to say hello to me, Dennis?
Well,
court and the defense has no objections, I will conduct the examination of this witness myself.
No objections.
Well, Mr. Judd, do you renew your objection to the witness at this time?
No, Your Honor. My client informs me that he does know the witness under the name of Dennis Freehan, so we are no longer entirely in the dark.
You may proceed, Mr. Flexner.
Thank you. Donald Haney, it seems that you and the defendant, Walter Whitaker, are acquainted with each other. Tell the court, please, if you were ever employed by Mr. Whitaker.
Yeah, I worked for him.
Doing what?
Runner. Pickup and delivery.
Pickup and delivery of what? Betting slips, payoff money?
Well, like that.
Were you also acquainted with a deceased individual known as Eddie Lomax?
Yeah.
Would you tell the court, please, when you saw Eddie Lomax last?
The night before he blew up your car.
Objection. This has not been established.
Sustained.
Now, Mr. Haney, you should have said that you saw Mr. Lomax last the night before my car was blown up.
That's right. That's when I saw him.
Under what circumstances?
Well, I was handed this box, like a shoe box. And I was told, go meet Eddie Lomax at this bus stop and give him the box. So I did.
Now, Mr. Haney, who was it who handed you this box and told you to give it to Mr. Lomax?
Walter Whitaker.
And when Mr. Whitaker handed you that box, did he tell you what was in it?
No.
Did you ever find out?
Well, yeah, I had some time to spare, so I got curious, you know, and so I tore open a little corner of the box.
And what did you see, Mr. Haney?
I saw dynamite.
Dynamite? Are you sure it was dynamite?
Well, I ought to be. Been working around construction companies long enough.
Then you admit passing this dynamite from Whitaker to Lomax.
Well, I didn't know what he was going to do with it.
You didn't know that he was going to wire this dynamite to my car?
No, I didn't know.
Objection. It has not been established that Lomax proceeded to wire any dynamite.
Let the jury determine what Lomax did. This habitual criminal who furtively received dynamite from Whitaker. Was anyone else's car blown up the next day but mine?
Mr. Flexner. The jury will disregard this. Mr. Flexner, I will overlook this outburst because of your personal involvement.
There'll be no more, Your Honor. The defense may cross-examine.
Donald Haney or Dennis Freehan? Which name are you going under now?
Dennis Freehan.
And what name were you going under when you were last employed by the defendant?
Dennis Freehan.
And when was that?
I think it was around about 5 years ago.
You were employed by Walter Whitaker 5 years ago, and only recently he engaged you for the delicate job of a go-between in a murder.
Well, that's what I said, didn't I?
That's what you said, all right. What name were you going under when you last went to prison?
Objection. Your Honor, this witness's record has no bearing in this case.
Your Honor, his record has a great deal of bearing on his credibility.
I will allow it.
What name were you going under when you were convicted?
Dennis Freehan.
And who was the district attorney who convicted you?
Mr. Flexner.
To your knowledge, does he remember that he convicted you?
He remembers part of it.
The fact of conviction, but not how you felt about it?
You want the truth?
Yes.
He stuck me with a bum rap. I didn't do half of the things he said I did.
Nevertheless, he sent you to a prison for hardened offenders. Isn't that right? And while in that prison, weren't you attacked by one of the inmates? Weren't you struck on the head?
Yes, I was.
With resultant brain damage, causing a loss of vision? And isn't that why you wear the glasses? And in a few years, even the glasses won't do you any good?
Yes, that's right.
But the district attorney didn't know that, did he?
No.
So that he couldn't know. Then in all his extensive files, there is not one criminal with as deep and bitter a grudge against him as you, could he, Dennis?
Do I have to answer that?
No, I'll withdraw it. Just tell the court if Mr. Flexner offered you any inducement for your testimony.
He told me that if I told the truth in court, that he'd believe me. That he'd believe that I didn't know what Lomax was going to do with that dynamite that I gave him.
But is that the truth, Dennis? Or is it true that you never gave any box containing dynamite to Lomax? That you stole that dynamite from the Whitaker Construction Company? And that you wired that dynamite to Mr. Flexner's car yourself to pay off that grudge?
No. No, no.
Your Honor, yesterday you granted Mr. Flexner an adjournment for his own purposes. Will you now grant me a brief recess?
So, you're accusing me of putting on a stiff witness. I'd expect that from some defense attorneys, but not Clinton Judd.
I haven't accused you yet. I'm just asking you if you really believed Freehan's story.
Well, why wouldn't I believe it? The cops brought me evidence that he was flashing dynamite in the farm.
How did you get him to admit it?
I flashed something at him. A key. I told him it was a key to Whitaker's dynamite locker. Well, actually, it was a key to my front door, but the bluff worked. He folded.
Did he tell you that he delivered the dynamite to Lomax? To Lomax, Joe? Be very careful, please.
Why the please?
Because, Joe, all through this case, I haven't really been defending a gangster. I've been defending you. Without the kind of district attorney you were, there is no court of law. There's anarchy or tyranny, but no law. So tell me, Joe, what kind of a DA are you now?
Freehan told me he delivered the dynamite to a man on Whitaker's instructions. He didn't know who. So I suggested a real man to him, a dead man. What harm could it do? How did you know?
Well, I was in that cubbyhole you rented when it came over the police teletype that Lomax had been shot. I could see it in your eyes. Suddenly, you were able to make a case.
No, not a whole case, but I thought there was a case. I was only trying to make it better. All right. Technically, it was bad. I felt I had to nail Whitaker. I owed it to the public. All right. Then, tell you the truth. I owed it to my wife. Because I didn't love her. Because I couldn't give her the kind of life she wanted. At least I could convict the man who killed her, I thought. What do you want me to do now?
Answer two questions. Are you still so anxious to nail Whitaker that you'll let the man who really killed your wife get off?
That's easy.
Second question. Will you resign as district attorney?
That's hard. Resign without even a fight? Don't you think you want too much?
Mr. Judd, you ready to continue the cross-examination of the witness?
Your Honor, I would like to approach the bench in company of the district attorney.
You may approach.
Your Honor, I understand the district attorney has other plans for this witness.
That's correct, Your Honor. I now have reason to believe that the crime was committed by the witness, not the defendant. With the court's permission, I will order Dennis Freehan arrested.
Mr. Flexner, what do you want to do about the defendant?
Oh. I will join Mr. Judd in the motion for dismissal.
So moved.
Case dismissed. The jury is discharged. The defendant is released from custody.
Where are you going?
What are you worried? I'll mail you a check.
Whitaker, a man like you can get sick, killed, or arrested between here and the letterbox, so write the check out now, please. Ruth?
Would you give this to Judd?
Counselor?
What's bothering you?
Flexner. We made a deal.
And he's keeping it. Carbon copy of a letter to the governor.
For personal reasons, I hereby resign as district attorney effective immediately.
Okay?
Yes and no. Joe might have written me a note, but he thinks I want too much.
We'll throw you a note. P.S. on the envelope. Dear Mr. Judd, thank you.